In this video, I'm going to show you the sampling technique in statistics. Well, what is the sampling technique? This sampling technique is a subset method of objects or also of people randomly selected from a larger initial set, in which this subset of objects is randomly selected and all with equal probability. And this is a process in which a sample is chosen quite randomly. And we can implement this as well in Excel. So let's come to an example. I have here different persons. We can see here the appropriate ID, and we see in total 10 persons. So for instance, 3 out of 10 people should be selected randomly, should be questioned in a company, for instance, as customers, or also checked for a train ticket on a train. So how can we get or generate randomly 3 out of 10 people here? Well, we can implement this here by clicking on data and then after on data analysis. But please make sure that you have activated already this feature in Excel. This is possible here by clicking on customize the ribbon with a right click. And as you can see, I can now jump to add-ins and now to the Excel add-ins, which I find here. Then I click on go and then I can set here the check button on analysis tool pack. Once I have activated this analysis tool pack, I can hand over to a data analysis and then I can choose here the sampling technique. So this is a subset method. In order to select randomly objects, we can press OK after. Then we can select here our initial input range. And then this is very important that we use numerics. So not categorical data, but numerical data. So that means if we have a look at our data type of the columns, so surname, first name, but also the ID, then we see that only the ID is a column with numerical data. So this is only implementable for this column B and not for C and D. So we can use this feature now for column B. Then we go back to this dialog sampling and say here our initial input range should be exactly this area. I can also say that I want to have a header, so a column header. Then we can say here we want to have some labels, and then I can say here at the sampling method how many samples I want to generate randomly. For instance, the number of samples should be 3. So we want to have 3 people randomly selected or 3 out of 10 people choose in order to check for a train ticket. Then we can also define the output range, which could be here in this existing worksheet, but we can also say we want to create for the output a new worksheet, and even a new workbook would be possible as well. But I want to have here the output range in this existing sheet, and I can say here, for instance, in this cell F4, I can go to OK. And as you can see, those are the results. But of course, it is very important for us to know which people stand for those numbers. And as I told you already, you cannot go to data analysis sampling and then change it to a categorical column such as this, because if we press OK, then Excel is telling us that the input range contains non-numeric data, so categorical data. So as a result, we can use a lookup for this in order to solve this problem. And we could also say that this is the full name, so a combination out of the first name and last name. So we can say here that we want to concatenate those strings, as you can see, like this. And of course, I also want to have the same format. So I can go to home and use the format painter. So by selecting here our complete column like this, and then I can adapt the same format structures as well for column E. But another shortcut would be that we select our initial column like this. Then you can press a right click on this black cross you can see right below, and then you can pull it on the right side. And as you can see here in this dialog, I can also press fill formatting only. And as you can see, we have it here in the same formatting style. So last but not least, we want to see now which people are standing for those IDs. Of course, I can now use a classical VLOOKUP, and I can say this is the initial lookup value. You can search it here in our table array, which is this complete array. And then I can give the column index number. So this would be index 1, 2, 3, and 4 for this specific column. So I can press 4. And last but not least, I also want to have here a range lookup. So that means I want to have an exact match, not an approximate match. I want to have an exact match. So I press false also by pressing the tab key. So as you can see, I can do it like that. And as we can see, and here we already have the result. Of course, we want to implement this for all IDs randomly chosen. So we can press also F4 in order to say that this complete table array should be fixed. And then we can adapt it for the other IDs. And as you can see, it works. Then also another tip from my side. What would be if our column with the full name wouldn't be on the right side next to our initial ID column? So it would be like this. Then of course the VLOOKUP is not working anymore because it's always working technically on the right side, you know? Because it's always technically working on the right side. In order to solve it, you can also use, instead of the VLOOKUP, the so-called XLOOKUP. And this XLOOKUP works also very easy and is the better VLOOKUP in my point of view. So then we can define the lookup value, which is the ID, which is selected randomly. Then we can define the lookup array. This should be here, our first array with the IDs. And then I can say what is the return array. And this is this area. And as you can see, if we adapt it, then this is working. And then we have the person who stands behind. And then we can adapt also here our fixed arrays with F4, and then I can adapt it for the other IDs, and then you can see the people standing behind. So as you can see, this is a really great technique, this sampling technique, which you can use here by clicking on data, data analysis, and sampling in order to generate random numbers out of an initial table array.